Hello, Glitch Reaper here. I'm back for another portion of my, my mod review on Ender utilities. Before I was going over various things about the storage options, materials, and a few things that'll become more apparent later because of dynamics I mentioned like linking, memory usage, and more. So this time I'll be going on to how you create and interact with the modules and some of the tools, hopefully, as well as various other various other objectives having to go with this. Now, one of the things you will need is basically each of these blocks. Okay, this one is mostly just handy; it's not absolutely necessary, but and neither is that one there. But okay, mainly these two. You'll be mainly needing these two. You'll be needing your tool workstation and an Ender infuser. And I can pop these away because I won't be needing them, and I will be needing some space. So, we have the tool workstation, the Ender infuser, the Ender furnace, and a creation station. All these blocks have very special usage, and they can really be, well, you'll be using these two as your workhorse. The mod, the others are just really handy. Now, a tool workstation is 4 of the basic Ender alloys, anything that counts as a slime ball, which is kind of funny to see some of the alternate things in this particular pack, a crafting table, a chest, and a couple of obsidian. Now, whenever you go into one, this is where things start getting interesting. For one thing, you have free renaming, drawing lips, free renaming as if it were an anvil. I mean free. Like I don't need to use any levels or anything. It wouldn't matter if I was in creative or not. So let's say set name, and now I've renamed an item. Basically for cheaper alternative to an anvil. So yeah, that happened, but that's not what this particular block is about. You may notice that it has a particular symbol here, a symbol of a tool. Well, what you do is you put a tool in there, and then you can add and subtract modules. You can also store some of those modules in here if you'd like, but it doesn't store other items that well. Like, for example, that went into there. I can't put it into there no matter how much I click. But this counts as a module. So now that is stored as a module. Whenever I put it in there, I can rename modules like anything else, or I can just put them in there for later storage. So let's leave one in there for now for a particular reason. And I'll go over how all this works in a few moments. Now, well, I might just go ahead with that, because some of this kind of ties together. Well, I can describe their functions first and then go over, because I'll probably get to all that stuff anyhow. So that is something that you'll be needing, because remember I discussed modules, again, they'll be used here. So that's kind of a heavy thing with this mod, and taking them in and out is very important, because sometimes they'll need one of the capacitors, and you'll need to take it out to recharge it. So this is something you'll be needing to use a lot. The Ender infuser is how you get that energy. Note that this is shaped just like a capacitor. If you look over here, you'll see that they all have that same profile. Well, in the Ender infuser, you will be putting only them in here. That is the only type of module that you'll be able to use, and it's specifically meant to recharge them. Now, the rest of this interface is interesting in and of itself. You need to put in Ender pearls or eyes of Ender, just like it says, and you will get 1,000 units per Ender pearl and 2,000 per eye of Ender. So eyes of Ender are more economical to use. And the thing is that, again, each of those capacitors had a particular charge that they could get. Well, this has a limit in and of itself, but it drains very quickly between them. It will automatically melt down the Ender pearls or eyes of Ender without any further fuel, put it into this internal storage buffer tank, and then try to fill a capacitor. If you don't have a capacitor, this will fill to its own capacity, and then no more operations will happen. So if you have additional Ender pearls or eyes of Ender here, they won't be used up or anything. It will just fill it up. So let's just, say, grab a stack of eyes of Ender as a demonstration. See how that starts up? Well, it's going into here and filling that up. but it doesn't have a capacitor. And this will fill pretty quickly, so watch what happens in a few seconds whenever this goes all the way to capacity and doesn't have anything it's actively filling. And stop. Exactly. So you don't have to worry about wasting items, which is very important seeing how expensive that they'll be overall, because again, these are like Eyes of Ender, and that can be a big deal. Now, if I were to grab one of these modules from over here, specifically the Advanced Ender Capacitor, you'll quickly note just how much this tends to suck up power. Because this has a capacity of 500,000 and this has a capacity of 16,000. So, but as a special note, it can in fact charge this as fast as it goes through Eyes of Ender. So the two factors cancel each other out perfectly. So if you use Eyes of Ender, it can drain 2,000 units into the Ender capacitor at the exact same amount of time as to how quickly it burns up an Eye of Ender to produce those 2,000 units. Now, as for Ender Pearls, it will actually drain out faster than it can burn the Ender Pearls. So, yeah, again, Eyes of Ender are kind of a better fuel. This will keep going until it's fully charged, at which point, if you have enough charge for however many stacks you need here, which is actually pretty simple, because as I said before, it takes 2,000. Well, that would mean that, let's see, you double it up to 50 grand, and yeah. So, overall, that would be a pretty heavy amount of Eyes of Ender. It really would be, because you get 2,000 units each, and that's 500,000 units per the fill, so you can imagine this gets stupid expensive. Because, let me see here, you have that there, yes, so this is 25, it'd be 250 Eyes of Ender. Yeah, that's a lot. So, and now once it finally gets filled, it will automatically jump down here. Ignore that little space, it never stays there. So it goes boink, and then you'll be able to retrieve it. You can retrieve it previously, and just let things fill. Or you can put it back in. Note that if you're charging a specific item, it will pause this whenever it detects that it doesn't have a specific flow. If you don't have that charging, wait for that, you'll try to go regardless. But since this thing isn't quite down enough, let's drain that out. It will not overfill if it knows that it can't hold any more. So it does have a safety mechanism for making sure you don't waste items. So I'll just put that back in. But this only works with those capacitors, and you will need those internally with several of the tools. Again, I'll be showing how to do that in a moment with the tool workstation for adding and subtracting modules. The Ender Furnace, on the other hand, is something that you might be using a lot of, even if it's not strictly speaking necessary for the mod progress. To get one, you'll need a regular furnace, 3 of the basic alloys, 4 obsidian, and an inactive Ender core. Note when it comes to Ender cores, it does matter whether they're inactive or active when used as a crafting ingredient. So, yeah, that means if you have one active, it won't actually work. Which is kind of funny. So there is such a thing as going too far. Now, an Ender Furnace has a few things that are very special about how it can operate. You may notice it has my player name here already. That's because whoever placed it or was using it can have it identify their Ender chest system. Anyhow, as I was saying, we can see that I have several miscellaneous items in my Ender chest system. Well, this furnace has the ability to go directly into your Ender chest or just fill itself up normally. If you're telling it to go into your Ender chest, then several certain special things happen. Well, namely, it just goes into your Ender chest system, and it's regardless of whether or not you have one, so you may want to have an item on you that can link to it. And those are also in this mod, so that's not really that hard to get a hold of. Now, the thing about it is that it also has a couple of general modes as well as this special option. You have slow, eco mode, and you have fast mode. Now, in slow or eco mode, it burns a lot slower than a regular furnace, but it uses up less fuel. In fast mode, it burns super quick, but uses up more. Note that this can also use ender pearls and eyes of ender as fuel. Now, as the ender furnace specifically, not the creation station that you can improve it into, you have the very special option of using no fuel at all. Let's demonstrate this with some items, shall we, that is preferably cookable. So let's just grab some mutton. Yeah, some raw mutton. Now, I have this in its turtle mode, and I have it set to go into my ender chest system. Now, at first it won't display, but it will start up, and it will start up initially very slowly if you have it in no fuel and slow mode. It goes a little extra slow whenever you don't have any particular fuel at all. So, that is something to note, but it can run completely fuelless. That's the ultimate in economy right there. Now, if I were to grab, say, a few ender pearls, and yes, I have a mod in here that causes ender pearls to be stackable to 64, so that does operate in other ways. You see, this is still cooking the item, and it's about to input into my ender chest. If I were to put these in as fuel, it would speed up just a little bit. Well, considerably. That's slow mode, might I add. Okay, so maybe technically it's faster than a regular furnace whenever it's in slow mode, but it does in fact have fuel. This is in fast mode and has fuel. Yeah, that's quick. Thank you. But yeah, slower uses up less fuel, but it's slower than its full throttle, and faster uses up more fuel, but does it really quick. So, yeah, that's kind of fun to fiddle around with. Now, again, in slow mode, it can use no fuel at all, and remember that it can use ender pearls as fuel, which is special. Now, you may be noting that these things are popping away. Well, they're going into here. They're going into my ender chest system. So I'm automatically obtaining food. So if I were to have something like, say, a chunk loader or something that was at least temporarily chunk loading, like some things in this mod will temporarily do that, but otherwise I'd kind of suggest a long-term chunk loader of some sort. Then what you could do is you could have kind of a station set up to provide you with food, because these have like the regular inputs and outputs as a regular furnace, and just automatically provide you with stuff, and that you could use like an ender chest or something equivalent, which again there is one in this mod, to basically just access that automatically and just get yourself an on-the-go fuel supply, as in fuel for you, not not for machines. So yeah, that's totally an option. So let's just speed this up and just take care of the rest of these mutton chops, shall we? Yeah, that's going pretty quick. I've seen faster. I've definitely seen faster, but you gotta admit this is fairly fast for a furnace. And it'll be done with these in just a few moments. And you do get several smelts out of an ender pearl. Technically, they count basically like coal, depending on your mode. They can get you like 8 or so. So, but it depends on whether you're going fast or slow, so that is a consideration. And now I have mutton chops. Yeah. So I have some extra food. Now, as I was about to say, in terms of the upgrade for this, we have the creation station. This thing is a little ridiculous. It requires 2 ender furnaces, a crafting table, 3 ender alloy enhanced, an inactive ender core enhanced, and a couple of obsidian. Now, the thing is, it kind of combines various aspects of these all together. So, this can look a little crazy. What this really means is it has all sorts of different modes, and you will be needing some of these memory cards that I discussed earlier. So, if I were to, say, go over here and grab a few of these, then you'll note that some of these become active. Memory cards are used, as I said before, to relate to items in various ways that are related to the block or tool. In this case, it's just giving it the ability to actually interact with its true capacity, and it's actually pretty extensive. It also has this interesting set of buttons over here. And what that means is if you were to, say, click on the whole shift-click thing with JEI, where you fill it in, then that fill-in would be able to be memorized by clicking one of these buttons, so that if you have those items and you put them in, it will have that already memorized and can repeat that over and over for you. So you can basically memory lock various recipes for fast access. So let's say that I do that with something and I have a few items in my inventory. So let's toss a few things in here, and let's say, oh, here's a good example. Purpur. If I were to, say, grab, let me see, do I have pop course? Is that here or is that under materials? I think that's under materials. Ah, here we go. Popped chorus fruit. Well, let's say you were using your JEI, and let's say you wanted to have purpur blocks, and a lot of them. Well, here we go. We have the recipes. Well, remember, this has JEI support, so you're doing that in here. You can now click to move items, and there you go, it's in. Note that these spaces are now colored differently. Well, you can also do a quick version just by clicking on that. So, let's say that we craft some of these up normally. Now let's say that I have more of those materials, and it has multi-storage capability. So, popped chorus fruit. I click on one. Should have worked. Thought it was locked. Maybe I didn't lock it properly. Okay, now it's locking it there. So, there we go. Now it's working. See how it's locked there? Well, that means if you just shove the items in real quick, it will basically fill into the... Well, it should fill into those slots. I guess maybe it's really more meant for mass manufacture with shoving things in very large. That feature is not as useful really anyhow, because if you have JEI, you can kind of already do that. You can kind of see how it's locked in with these ghost items. It's trying to lock them in. And also note that these spaces kind of act like some of those special storage units, and that you can get much larger stacks per area. So each of these slots can hold a lot more items than normal, and these cards will kind of help you out. In fact, you can get whole alternate versions of this thing just by clicking on which memory card you're on. So that whole setup is basically stored in this memory card. So you can see that's pretty cool. You click this, and it's yip, items. And no matter what you do, it doesn't alternate anything else, unless you're corresponding to that card. So see how I said these things will be coming up later a lot? Well, that's why. Yep, here we go. Okay, let's try a little bit more pop chorus fruit just for one more try. See if I can get this to work. There we go. Just took a couple of clicks in a row to get it. So it just had to be done in rapid succession. So now you can see that you can pull items in and out fairly quickly. Now you'll also see that it has these special things very similar to the Ender Furnace. That's with good reason. They have a similar function, except for one little thing. You can't do it entirely in fuel-free mode. You can, however, do fast and slow, but you now absolutely require fuel. However, you can do that with 2 slots at the same time. So This one would be cooking mutton, for example. Well, let's say you also want some pork chops. Note, shift clicking may throw them into the general storage area first. Well, you can tell that you can go into fast modes and slow modes. So, let's go into a bit more materials and grab... sorry, wrong thing. Let's grab some ender pearl, shall we? Now we're cooking. And it cooks up a lot like a regular furnace, so standard output input. You also do not have the option of linking these to your ender chest system. So that is not an option here. Note that you actually have two of these areas to do that same memory lock thing with as well. You have two ender furnaces, basically, without the ability to do free fuel or putting it into your ender chest. You have basically a kind of hefty storage unit you can use in the middle, and you have a lot of these different items. Like, for example, this will say you can use Ore Dictionary, leave an item in each of the slots, take items from the inventory, meaning yours, not here. Well, actually, I do believe it means here first. So, for example, let's try putting in more pop coarse fruit and corresponding with this again while this stuff is cooking. Because I'll use that as a timer. Say take items from inventory. See, now it's taking from there. Take more. So, take items from inventory equals this inventory. So, yeah. Might be a little delay there sometimes. And clear grid, meaning you've cleared up what that is. Or at least you've cleared the items that are ghost items you're already tracking, and any items you actually have there. So, clear grid literally clears the grid. No items to sort. So that would normally be an auto sort function, which is pretty cool. You can also have this leave an item filled with every type here, and that's good for if you're hoppering or using pipes. It means that if items are being taken out, it will refuse to take the last one, acting as a bit of a marker. You can also have it move matching items, except your hotbar. So you can, say, pull items from your inventory and put them in here. So that's all very handy features for one block. It's still not the most insane block I've seen for utility in one block, but admittedly, that is pretty darn good. This is, again, standard in just with stuff, so yeah. Now, I have certain items in here because they have unusual issues with being in your inventory at the time. They are actually pretty cool, but at the same time, they can do weird things when they're in your inventory. So when we go into mobile inventory mastery, ways of expanding and operating with your mobile inventory, these items I might actually leave a bit later, but yeah. Now, we have here an ender bag, and this isn't necessarily one that's going to be issues with your inventory. But basically, you can bind it to a regular ender chest. I did sneak and right click. Didn't I sneak and right click? Hello? This was working before. Click. Why are you not working right now? Do I need some special modules? Yes, I do. This may just be that I didn't really upgrade it yet. Well, here's where modules come in. See, you can cause yourself some real issues if you forget that it's modular. So let's change that, shall we? The handy bag needs, well, the ender bag needs power. Normally speaking, this would be bound to a vanilla ender chest because it's having issues with other inventories that will be restored. It used to be where you could actually bind this to any particular block with an inventory, and that's why you could have up to 4 link crystals. Yay! It's because you needed that to actually do that kind of stuff. Now, special note, you didn't necessarily need to have it linked to block because it would have an auto-link function. Although, I'll put one of those in here just because it's how it was originally meant to be used. Like, for example, if you had a spare chest, you could link it to the chest, and then any items that you had in the handy bag would be able to drain directly into the chest at a distance, which was a particularly cool feature. Now, this does require some ender capacitor power, so let's check up on our infused capacitor. This one has a lot of energy, and now our bag is loaded because I gave it a capacitor, which whenever you put anything in here, it will basically give you outlines of whatever modules you'll be needing. So very important to show that it has a visual representation of matching modules. Now, let's try this again. It is now linked to the ender chest. It basically now is a portable ender chest. It lets you link to it quickly. Now the thing is, you will drain power over time, so let's show that, shall we? A prong block. Okay, this one has 127,200. So remember that number. Ah, 126,600. See, whenever you open and close this, it actually takes a certain amount of that ender charge. So it can be expensive to use overall compared to some options that just, in some other mods, just give you the ability to just use something like a portable ender chest without having to place it. This is kind of similar to that, except a little more limited because you require to be able to make it modular. Making the item in the first place is where you also need, as I was saying before, some of those various items that I was telling you would be materials that you'd be needing. Well, I wasn't kidding, because we're getting in that area where they come up a lot more often. Well, the alloys already were, but you know. You'll be needing 4 ender rope, you'll be needing 3 leather, any particular wool is perfectly fine, and an inactive ender core enhanced. So it's a bit of an expensive option for what's basically an ender chest that you don't have to place. Again, that kind of option has popped up in other ways, so it may not necessarily be your first choice if your pack has other options. But if it doesn't, or you've specifically got one meant to be reliant on ender utilities, this is basically your way of doing it. If you run out of power, you will not be able to open it for any reason, and you won't have access to your ender chest system unless you, well, use another actual ender chest or something. You just won't be able to use it from the ender bag. So that's kind of a thing as to how that works. Now some of these other things are special and will kind of make it tricky for me to play it and get away, which is why I have them in the ender chest. As soon as I put them into my actual inventory, things start changing. Because I just hit my inventory button. This isn't me using any other feature. Also note that it needs memory cards. Yeah. Well, basically, amongst other things, these handy bags allow you to increase your mobile inventory by at least a chest worth, and it has some of these same options that you saw before about doing various kinds of actions, but it also has and then some. It has restock mode, pickup mode, and whether it's enabled for a bag. See, now I can go into my other inventory by hitting E, because I disabled the bag. So you can in fact turn it on and off. But if you forget to turn it off, you may have a little issue because, for example, I was trying to access stuff in Creative before, but if I hit the button for inventory, it automatically goes to this whether or not you're even holding the bag. Like, watch this. I'm going to put this in the rest of my inventory. I'm going to hit the button for my inventory. It goes to this whole screen, not the extended version of Creative. So it has various things that you need to remember about it, because although it is in fact quite handy, it can also go in your way. Okay. Let's say move matching items. Now it's thrown my matching items in, and remember memory cards improving stack sizes is a portion of why they're modular. I have 65 storage keys in one slot, so that is definitely more than the regular 64. And all I had to do was dupe them a little bit and tell it to move matching items. Now there's also move matching items down, so same option, but the arrow is going in another direction. So let's say I split this stack. Well, you can see that it won't allow you to force that stack past 64 in your inventory. Only if it's in this one. Oh well. So it's not an absolute miracle worker, but that's perfectly fine. You also have the option to move all items and just shove them into your inventory. By the way, it always accepts your hotbar, so the fact that it flings a hotbar first when filling things might also go against you sometimes. You can also move all items except hotbar into this. So, whoop. See, I just moved a bunch of things simultaneously. And it goes back down. So this thing can be used for some quick inventory tricks. And you can also sort your inventory. Yeah, which sorts the bag itself, funny enough. But hey, that's how it works. Okay, so I'll toss some other things in that I don't entirely need. I will keep my books, thank you very much, for auto-sort not always sorting the way I want it to. But that's one little thing that I have issues with all sorts of auto-sorting mods, not just that. You have other things about pickup mode and restock. Now, remember how some of the other things could lock slots? Well, that is now locked to storage key. I now have the pickup mode. I will enable it. I will toss them onto the ground. Note that they went directly here. So, yeah, that's a thing. It will pick it up directly where you want it. And if you've locked the slot into one particular thing, then it will all go there. So that's very handy for doing heavy mining and stuff. So yeah, by combining having the slot at least temporarily locked, at least until the next time you access it, and having pickup mode, then that exact slot will pick up that particular item that's been locked and shove it right there. You also have the ability to shift-click move to the bag compared to regular areas. So right now, it was moved to the bag. Now it's moved between inventory and hotbar. See, it's not going to the bag. Double tap shift toggle. Move to bag. There you go. So this thing has all sorts of different ways of doing it. Now there's also something called restock mode. So let's disable pickup and go with restock. What that means is items in here, except for one item that you may have locked or not, will restack into basically a stack. Filling your stack as much as it can be. So whatever item is in here, if you have it on restock mode, will always try to give you a stack in your inventory. It will not give any further past that point except that one stack. But that does mean that you'll have a stack of that one item pretty much on command. And remember, these stacks can be much bigger than your stacks. So you can in fact use this to give you a vast reserve of items. So this handy bag is in fact quite handy, and it's useful in so many ways. Now making it itself requires 4 ender alloys with the enhanced variety, an ender chest, a couple of ender rope, and a couple of leather. So it's a pretty interesting option. It's not really too expensive compared to what it does. It's a little expensive overall, but compared to what it does, not really. Because this has some really cool features. And that was just the handy bag. There are other things in here that are particularly cool. Like for example, The larger version of the handy bag. Yeah, that's right. It's ridiculously hefty. Now, because of this, I will actually need to go to my massive storage bundle, pick out a few more of these, and because this has been enabled, you also note that the large version will override this version. So, yeah. That's kind of a thing that you'll need to remember. Unless you have the other one enabled. So whichever one you have enabled will override the other one. Note there'll be a little bitty symbol on it that displays whenever it's disabled, not enabled. So that'll say that it's being locked out from going. It'll be locked out from going into this mode immediately. So let's disable that one. And re-enable this one. Basically, they are exactly like the other one, except you get additional slots on the sides. So the large version is absolutely massive. It has all the same kinds of options, including quick sorting, moving all items back and forth, leaving a one-filled stack of every item type, which is an interesting option I didn't exactly show before, but that basically means that it'll kind of equilibrate in a way where it only has a stack size in one area. Well, it doesn't exactly show that very well, but you know what I mean. It basically leaves one filled stack of every item type and won't really go down from that unless you move it yourself. So that's mainly good for automatic restocking and pickup. So it's like leave a stack in here, leave a stack out there, whatever. But again, this has a lot of those same options, except it's much bigger. So this can be very useful, but it's also very big. So let's disable that. If at any time you click with it, you'll always be able to access it, but at the same time, it won't be overriding your regular inventory button. So it's kind of good to know what your options are. You're moving right along. We have something a little bit different. We have the inventory swapper. You may notice that this thing is a bit more complicated. Also note that unlike the other ones, it does not give you an immediate access to their extra inventory every time you hit the inventory button if you have them enabled. Instead, it has this humongous thing here. Now note that there's certain additional compatibilities this has, and note that a lot of these are grayed out currently. That's because, again, it uses storage cards. Now this only accepts the small ones. Remember earlier I said there was something like that? This is literally exactly that. There is only one that really takes this option. That is the inventory swapper. And for a very specific reason. It's quite powerful, so you don't want to allow it to have too much capability, because what it actually does is ridiculous. You may note that I'm switching between these, but you don't necessarily see an immediate difference. That's because this thing is meant to swap between your inventory and the inventory swapper itself. So note that I currently do not have on armor. Well, I can do a quick swap by doing this. Actually, I think I need to control. There we go. Okay, CMC. I need one. Okay. But anyhow, it'll go between these things, so you can quickly go into one whole set. Like I have this set of armor here, and I can. Oops, wrong thing. Wrong button. I'm having issues corralling them. Okay. Well, anyhow, I was supposed to hit this button earlier. Probably should have did that earlier. But that will include your armor slots as well as your shield slot. And it's supposed to be swapped between these two areas. And you can capacitate very large amounts of items. So each of these will actually be a whole other inventory worth of stuff. It is compatible with baubles, so you can actually swap your baubles on the fly. You can also swap your hotbar with its hotbar. Maybe I need to use the toggle mode button. I think I do. Cycle mode, no. Okay. Because I'm trying to remember how to use this thing. It's kind of something I haven't experimented with that much, so it's a bit different. Let's turn that off for now. Turn that off for now while I try to figure this thing out. Because, again, it's been a while since I tried even beginning to do this thing. The thing about it is you have to use a lot of controls. Toggle mode. Let's say, nope, not G. H. T. Nope. Y. Why won't Y work? I. K. Oh, K works. And you'll need a lot of hotkeys. You may have heard something. I have my armor on. I still have my armor on. Why? Because I haven't specified that I needed to swap it. Now, I hit the key. It swaps. You hear a sound. My armor is off. I hit the key. You hear the sound. My armor is on. Why is it doing that? The reason why is simple. Because in here, I've hit this button. If I hit this button, then out of what this card has access to, it will be able to hot swap what I have on with that set of slots. Now this also can swap your whole hotbar, it can swap a line in your inventory, and it can swap your baubles if you have anything involving baubles involved. So let's try doing a little bit of that and having fun with this inventory swapper here. Well, I have the dark armor from Ender.io, but what if I wanted another armor set? Well, not a lot really shows up out of the ones that are available quickly, but there's a few. So let me just, for example, I don't need the button actually. Let's take this imp skin stuff from Natura. And I'll always click in that to work those. Now note that I have these in slot 1. Now I switch which memory card I was corresponding to. And it's still here, just only under slot 1. So I will hit the mode change key, because I have this accessing slot 1. Now I have the imp skin armor on. And now I have the dark armor on, because I swapped again. So this is really useful for doing it on the fly. So if you need equipment swapped around, this is a good reason, this is a good way to have this. So let's do this with, say, accessories, shall we? I just need to figure anything with baubles in it. But I think it would be, well, the thing about baubles is it has certain limitations. Like, for example, you can only have one belt at a time. You can only have certain slots like, say, one amulet. Well, let's see here. Aha. Let's say that I decided to go between the, one of my favorites is the tectonic girdle, because it allows you to be immune to knockback. It's one of them from Botania. But at the same time, you may also want another one of the old favorites. The Sojourner's Sash, which speeds you up, gives you step assist, and a lot of fancy things with your that you can do when it comes to movement. Or, let's say, instead, another one of my favorites, the Repair Talisman, from Project E itself. It allows you to keep restoring your durability to your stuff. But they both take up the belt slot. This is where you've confined me to one bauble just because I hit E. I never did like how that worked. Well, anyhow, let's just go on to how this works. Let's say that I equip myself with the tectonic girdle normally, but I also decide to put something over here. These are the ones that correspond with what is in the bag. So, now I have the Repair Talisman in my belt slot that way. Now, to be able to actually hot swap, remember, if I do this now, it'll only really swap my armor, because that's what I've already told it to do. But, if I go in here, you'll note that these haven't changed one way or the other. So I do that, and now, they're still here. my armor's swapped out, but not these. Why is that? Because I didn't hit this button. And that button is controlling this quite well. Now, unlike some other things, you don't have to worry too much about modules in here other than those memory cards. That is the only thing you'll need. It doesn't really require power. But, now that I've selected that, let's have some fun with the fact that it doesn't require power. Because now I have the imp skin armor on, and the dark armor is now in here. And I've swapped with my repair talisman. So now, instead of having the tectonic girdle to prevent knockback, I have repairability. Well, I would if I was in survival and anything needed repairs, but you get my point. So now I have the dark armor and the tectonic girdle. So yeah, this can be very handy, and remember, you basically get 4 sets of that. 4 sets of that to play with, in addition to your own inventory slots. In addition to your own equipment slots, and for that matter, your additional equipment slots from baubles. So this item is super handy for having lots and lots of options. And remember, for each of these rows or columns, and that's what each of these correspond to, you can have a swapping option for that memory card. So let's say you only wanted something with the last row. Fine. Let's say you wanted to swap out a much bigger portion. Now, whenever these intersect, it has a very special interaction. Wherever there would normally be 2 lines hitting each other, if you're using these arrows, it actually goes blank. That means that area will not be swapped. Isn't that handy to know, that you can control dedicated areas and make sure that they do not swap? But whatever that is will swap when it comes down to it. So let's say I wanted to swap my hotbar. Let's say, and this is hotbar is a specialty. So let's say I wanted to swap these out. I'll go ahead and leave these in here. Well, let's do the swap button. Yay! Now, why does it not swap the bag? Because it never swaps itself. That's just something to note. It will not swap itself regardless. So just to note that. That is a special exception. The one thing it doesn't swap is itself. So if you wanted to swap hotbars that way, that would be perfectly fine. But remember, all this relates to having the inventory swapper on your person. So if something were to happen to it, unfortunately you wouldn't be able to really use it. But until then, it is quite useful. Making the inventory swapper itself, if I hadn't already shown, is 4 of the basic ender alloy, a chest, a couple of ender rope, and 2 sticky pistons. Kind of interesting. I guess it's shoving stuff in and out physically as well as enderly. So, yeah. But either way, a very handy, useful item that you can come up with all sorts of combos for. Now, coming up too, we also have certain other items that are very special with mobile inventory. Including, well, some of these things are modular in and of themselves, so we'll be showing off more of the system with the tool station. If you're receiving this message, this means that previously there has either been a major session-ending crash. I have been editing a session due to length so that I can divide it into more than one episode and may not have found a natural moment to sign off, or for some other reason I was not able to sign off properly. Therefore, I will give my traditional ending now. Okay, this has been Glitch Reaper. I'll be signing off for now. Hope to hear from you all later, so bye for now, everybody. And because this happens to be right here, I'm just gonna also say, and join the parrot party.